All right. So let's go over our last real segment of notes for this unit of parenting styles and attachment. Okay. I know we alluded to some of this in our Google Meet last week that we kind of talked about Balby and some of the other imprinting aspects and where all this began. But let's take a look at some other things that we didn't quite go over. So we had the work of Diana Baumrind, and she kind of put together, and you can see to the bottom right, this Punnett square of parenting styles, right? Four of them. And the four are as such: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and rejecting or neglecting. So when we look at kind of how this is broken down, and you've got the green that is more desirable traits, one would identify for parenting, and then the red would be less. So the authoritative parent would, in this instance, be the one that you would want to aspire to, right? Where you're demanding yet supportive, where you're holding your children to high expectations, but yet you're there to kind of help them through difficult times. To achieve those goals and to make sense of it and understand and so on. So for the authoritative parent, relationship is reciprocal. Okay, you're very responsive to their needs. High and bi-directional communication, meaning you give them, the parent gives the children a lot of information and communicates well, as does the children to the parent. Okay, and then we get to some that what is deemed as less desirable traits, right? So if we look just below it to the permissive parent, right? Permissive parent is supportive, meaning they're very accepting of the child-centered narrative, but they're not demanding. Okay, they don't expect a lot of the kids. So permissive parenting is very low in controls, allows children to kind of make their own decisions, do their own thing, and so on, and allows the children to possibly get themselves into trouble or make very poor choices due to the low demands of the parent. Then you're looking at, if you look to the right of authoritarian parents, right? So they are very demanding, but they're also unsupportive. So they're a very controlling type relationship, a very strong power dynamic. I'm the parent, you're the kid. You need to follow my rules just because. And it's a unidirectional communication. The parents don't offer much information to the children, but the children are supposed to then tell everything to the parents. And then the final one in the bottom right corner is rejecting, neglecting parent, right? And this is somebody who is unsupportive and undemanding, often rejecting the attention needed for their children, not being involved, not paying attention to them, and not getting those children what they need to be successful. Okay, here it is again, a little bit different. Okay, and this is again a breakdown, kind of what we just talked about. So attempts to direct the children's behavior, but in rational, democratic ways, meaning you'll have a conversation about it. So you did something wrong, instead of just screaming at them, you would say, well, let's talk about why was this wrong? Who did it impact? Give and take, meaning you give some autonomy to those kids, but yet you also take some away when you feel that it's necessary for their own safety or to learn a social norm or behavior. Set rules and expectations, discuss why, and make sure those are high. Holding them accountable to living the type of values, morals, and life that you'd like them to. Authoritarian parents, okay, they try to control the behavior. They don't want them to go do things. They may block boyfriends, girlfriends, friends, going places, and so on. They want to keep the kids in place, prove that they're in charge, and have that hierarchy set up. Okay. The permissive parent gives a lot of freedom of choice, no real consequences, undemanding of the children or accepting the behavior, and lets them regulate their own behavior. Okay, you can see this. This can become very dangerous, especially if you're looking at teenage children, who may experiment in drugs or unprotected sex or do things like that, where they don't have those expectations, those demands that have been levied on them, or the communication structure to work through those challenges. Okay. And it's not saying every permissive parent is going to end up with a child that gets in trouble or authoritative or whatever, but you can start to see where some of those possibilities can start to arise. And then you're rejecting, neglecting, parent would neglect the emotional needs and sometimes even the physical needs of the children. They're uninvolved, uninterested in their lives, not the best of situations. Then we run into this gentleman, Harry Harlow, okay? And he's born out of Bowlby, and we'll later talk about Ainsworth and Baumrind, and all of them are kind of working on the same stuff. But he had a really interesting study that talked about secure attachment, right? And that these baby monkeys were more interested in spending time with this fake monkey that is essentially covered in like wool and soft clothing and feels warmer, as opposed to, and you can see in the far right picture, a wire monkey that also is affixed with a nursing system, right? So they can get food. Oftentimes, you would actually be reported that the monkeys would cling to the softer, more cuddly monkey mother while leaning over to get their food. Okay, and this is a strike because early on, the belief was that the need for subsistence or survival was primary to imprinting and creating that relationship with parents. Well, and what we're learning is that love and affection and all the rest of it are actually equally, if not more important, to imprinting and creating that relationship early on in life. Okay, and here's Ainsworth talking about attachment. Okay, so 3 things that were identified kind of from this is secure attachment, insecure avoidant, and insecure ambivalence. So secure attachment would lead to a well-developed, strong-willed, adventurous, confident young person as they grew up. And in this, you would be having someone who's gotten a lot of love, gotten a lot of attention from their parents. They've had that skin-to-skin time. They've had that affection. Their needs have been taken care of. Insecure avoidant is someone who may miss that, right? The parents don't hold them very often. Could be bottle fed, so they're losing that attachment. They don't get responded to when they cry and so on. Then insecure ambivalence, you'd see that with children that, you haven't had the same security created, but they're also, the young children are going to be kind of not changed by their surroundings, right? Usually insecure avoidant babies will be very skittish. They'll be very scared of like strangers and so on. Secure attachment will be inquisitive, but yet also aware that parents are around, so that they feel more adventurous and confident in doing things. Insecure ambivalent is that the kids are usually just not interested in really much of anything. They don't pay any mind to strangers around. They're not interested in adventure or going around checking new things out and so on. Okay, so here's kind of your breakdown for you. Okay, we'll let you read through some of that, but much of that was just talked about. And then we also have maybe there should be a video or two here on the back end of this. And with that bell, that's about it. Okay, so understanding how these parents and the attachments work out and help create who you become, right? Early childhood's pretty important.